Well, hello there. For some of you who don't know, I'm Dennis, and today is a special day. It is ParaDeisos' very first video, and it is with the wonderful, amazing, great Phillip Adcock. You hear me? Here we go. But I'm not gonna edit that out, guys, because I just want to be as real as possible with everyone. Phillip Adcock, UK author and psychologist, author of Master Your Brain, one of my favorites among many. Where do I begin? In a short minute, you guys are going to be seeing my Skype call with Phillip Adcock. The first minute or so, it's going to be like black because I was so nervous. It was basically my big time interview with someone. You know, my breakout interview with someone, you could say, someone who's kind of famous. And I forgot to press record on the Skype call. So the first minute or so, it wasn't recording the Skype call because I forgot to press it. And then after the first minute, I pressed record, and then that's that. Please enjoy. We put a lot of hard work into preparing this. Follow me on Instagram to see our setup here. It's quite amusing how I've got everything set up as far as audio and camera. But enjoy, guys. Like Ray and I always say, we just want to bring love, we just want to bring peace, we just want to bring happiness to the world. We're just two regular guys from New York who just like to talk and like to share what's on our minds and just like to spread knowledge. So this upcoming video, Mr. Adcock and I speak about shopping psychology. We speak about a little bit about the brain, a little bit about how emotions play into becoming a successful person, and a lot more. So just sit back, relax, enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. First subscriber gets a free book. So go. Don't forget to press the little bell, little notification bell, so you guys can know when new videos come up. Because apparently YouTube doesn't let you know when your subscribee doesn't post new videos. But I'm just yammering at this point. Guys, please enjoy. It's going to be very interesting, a lot of information. Don't forget to take notes because you can use it. We speak about practical things that you can use throughout your life, that you can apply within your life to just become better human beings, happier human beings, smarter human beings, kinder human beings. So enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And share your thoughts. If you have any questions, you guys can hit me or Ray up on social media. We'll have links in the description along with a more detailed bio of who Phillip Adcock is, even though he's going to explain it in the video. But yeah, that's pretty much it on our end. And till next time, my beautiful people. So today I have Mr. Phillip Adcock. I don't know where to begin. I don't mean to be giddy or just so excited, but just like I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, I'm truly honored to be sitting here and having a conversation with Phillip Adcock, author of the amazing Master Your Brain. My goodness. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, it's going to be a lot of action-packed, knowledge-filled podcast, hopefully. Please, Mr. Adcock, tell us a little bit about yourself. A little less about what you do, because we're gonna get into that, but just what you do, what you love, hobbies. Just who is Phillip Adcock?
Who is Phillip Adcock? Nice to speak to you, by the way. Nice to speak to you. Um, I'm just a guy from the UK, that little island near Europe, and I've spent my entire life with first my own brain, and then other people's brains, and ever since I was knee high to not much, I've experimented with my own brain. And I've a very varied history. I've ridden horses for a living. I've been a retailer for a living. And for 25, 30 years, I have helped consumers and shoppers part with their money for a living by helping them open their wallets and purses. In terms of hobbies and what gets me going,
Yeah,
I've got a big old motorbike I like riding.
nice.
I'm too old for that now, but I still like riding the damn thing. If I can't get on my motorbike, I like to get on a horse, and I swim a lot. But it's just, I just genuinely, this is going to sound so patronising, so rubbish. I just like being me, mate. Just fun.
Very true for it, honest. I like it. So let's excuse me. Let's dive right in with my first question, and you kind of sort of answered it just a bit, but sort of elaborate more about what about the brain and human behavior interested you so much that drove you to become an expert in it.
Okay. What drove me to learn about it? Nobody's an expert in the brain yet.
Okay,
We're about 100
true.
million years away from that. Was to realize there's some things I wanted to do or achieve that I couldn't, and be cross because I couldn't work out why I couldn't. To give you a very simple example, I can read music. It's not difficult to read music. I'm not very good on the piano because it takes my brain so long to take that visual input through it out onto the end of my fingers and down onto the keys. So that was as a child. Why can't I do that? And it frustrated me that I couldn't do stuff. On the other side of the coin, I was only a short guy, but I could run very fast. So that avoided me getting into trouble. I'd run away. And so it's like, okay, how can I use my brain to run a bit faster? And then I just, an auntie of mine, an old English auntie, she's still with us, she bought me one of these books, How to Get Anything You Ever Wanted Without Even Trying type books. And I read it, and I thought, there's some good stuff in this. And so we got involved in all that. But I also started to read other books and realized there's an awful lot of hogwash in some of these books. You know, standing in front of the mirror, shouting, I must improve my bust or whatever, it ain't going to do anything. It ain't going to do anything. So from there, it's all right, I'm going to learn about this brain. And one of the biggest turning points, to give you a nice bit of background, is I was working for a company, and we were connected with a big sporting event here in the UK, and I had to go up and do some work at this event, nothing to do with what I do now. And the night before it started, there was a guy at the local town with a hypnotism show. And I thought, I'm going to go along. I've always been interested. Let's see what this guy's up to. So I sat there with another 500 people and basically hypnotized 200 of us, me included. And to tell you how it worked, he told us all that we got our fingers stuck together above our heads, which we did. And we had to go on the stage. And he did this thing, which I'll explain in a moment. And then suddenly our fingers came apart, but we were fast asleep on the stage. So all the women were going back to their seats. All the men were falling asleep in a big heap. This is me. I mean, I'm now an expert on the brain, they say. Then he said, right, when you hear some music, you'll dance at a disco. That's how long ago it was, like you've never danced before. And so on came this music. We all started dancing, and one at a time he came along and shook us by the hand and took away whatever he'd done, the voodoo, took it away, and we were all finding it. And I thought, A, that is absolutely brilliant, the way he can control my mind like that. And B, I want to be able to do it. So then we started reading about that, and it takes, anybody who starts reading about the brain will find it initially an impossible journey. Psychology, the way it's taught at schools and colleges, is appalling for the most part, because it's just teaching you the wrong way to do it. Once you realize that it's this huge potential thing you've got, this friend of yours, it's much better to learn about it then and make it work for you, not against you.
Is it a bit overwhelming, let's say, for just a regular person like you were, that was became interested in the brain? Can it be sort of overwhelming going down that path of understanding or trying to fully understand what the brain does or what it is?
To be honest, I find it the opposite, because most people think they're this human supercomputer that makes sensible decisions every day, blah, 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 blah. When actually we're flaky, we're flawed. We make emotional decisions on a whim, on fight and flight, on find a mate. That's how we make decisions. I have a very, take this phrase like you like, but this is how I genuinely feel. I feel that I'm extremely privileged because I'm one of the few people on earth who realize how stupid we all are. And when you see yourself from on the stupidity index with everybody else, you think, this is a real advantage here. I know why somebody does something stupid, why I do the wrong things. It doesn't make you any cleverer, any smarter, but by God, it helps you justify yourself a bit more. And you can be in the most intimidating situation. You can have to go and see the bank manager, the doctor, whatever, the tax man, the worst of all. And they use this overbearing attitude and behavior and authority. As soon as you realize that their brain is as stupid as yours, you see them in a whole new light, and it makes any meeting much easier. There we go.
Okay, understood. So I want to get a little bit into shopping behavior explained. You've been a part of it for about nearly 20 years now. So what exactly does shopping behavior explained do?
Shopping behavior explained, I mean, it has given me the life I've got today. It has given me the ability and the tools to learn about the brain in a professional context, not in a academic, flawed way that teaches me the Latin names for various parts of my head, but in making real change in shops and watching consumers and shoppers change their behavior. In an early example, I used to work for a retailer many years ago, and we put a strip of grey tape from the main central aisle of an electrical store into the one hi-fi aisle of many in that store. And we realized that all of a sudden, 56% of all the people going down the main aisle turned left into this hi-fi aisle, looked up, didn't know why they were there, turned and went out. So we then moved the grey carpet tape to a washing machine aisle, and guess what? They went into that one instead. And so we started to do stuff for the good of the business, but also for the fun of it. To give you a very bad example, I'm not politically correct in any way, I know I'm not, but one Sunday we were particularly bored in these stores, and we put a joint display of satellite receivers and dishwashers together. Buy them both together and get a discount. That's the way to deal with it. Then we watched couples come and argue about whether they could have them or not. Because the man wanted one thing, the woman another, and it was great fun. So, sorry, that's a joking aside. I've done this for 20 years. I've worked in 17 plus countries. We're very fortunate to work with some of the biggest brands on earth. And yeah, most people don't know how shopping happens. And obviously with the inception of the internet, it's a whole new shop. And is it the same? Is it different? If you take, I won't use the brand name unless you tell me I can. If you take a bottle of a well-known cola, it's quite an iconic bottle. Mm-hmm. And there's an awful lot of emotion tied into the shape and the look of that bottle and the weight. Okay. If you suddenly take that bottle and it's chilled and you put it in a 1-inch square picture on a well-known website, it loses all its emotion. But that's what people do. And they wonder why sales of that well-known product completely change when you put it online versus in the local C-store. It's to do with the emotion of the bottle and how do you get the emotion back online. I could go on. These are the things I do in my day job.
It definitely astonishes me, and I could listen forever. What do you say? What would you say are the key factors as to why people do what they do when shopping?
Emotion. There you go. That's an easy answer. Easy question, easy answer. I'll explain some more. We think we are rational beings. We think that we make these sensible decisions. It's absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. We are driven by emotion. We are driven by fight, flight, and find a mate. 3 Fs, and the third F, you can use another F if you want to, but that's what drives us. All the time, everything we see, everything we touch, hear, smell, taste, the first bit of the brain that it runs past is this a threat, a meal, or a potential mate? So you put me in a shop and I see some designer clothing, and if the shop happens to tell me that my chance of one of those Fs is going to go up if I wear said clothing, then if I've got a credit card, money no object, because my rational brain doesn't do money. My rational brain does money. My emotional brain does not do money. My emotional brain doesn't do language. So if you understand that your emotions are driving you in the shop, from a can of cola to a designer belt, your emotions make the decision first. They're 24 times quicker and 3,000 times more persuasive than rational thought. If I got your emotions nodding yes, you've had it. You're going to part with your money.
Yeah, and it's funny that you actually mentioned emotions, because I was gonna get into emotions a little later on in the interview, but um, you mentioned that in Master Your Brain, where if you're in a shop and you're sort of hesitant, if you need something, sort of go back home and think about it and let it ponder, and if you still want it in 15 or 30 days or whatever the case may be, then I guess you can get it. But if it's not sort of like, I forget what it is, but it's called you mentioned something like impulsive, where we're sort of, so we're impulsive buyers, but there's a way to sort of control that by developing your brain to understand that if you still want it in a certain amount of days, then yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let me try to explain that in a sensible, easy to understand way.
Okay.
You may have heard there's lots of people writing at the moment about what they call System 1, System 2 thinking. Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. Most of our existence is managed and run by System 1 thinking, instinct and emotion. That's the two. That's System 1, fight, flight, find, and mate. System 1 is running quicker than System 2. System 2 is the modern part of the brain, the new part of the brain, if you want a big word, the neocortex at the front. It's slower. So the simple thing about not just shopping, any activity, if you have a sudden urge to do something, just think twice. By thinking twice, you give the slow new bit of the brain chance to catch up. Not saying it'll win, but it has chance to catch up and put across the case for the defense. So, to use my, I hope I'm not being too rude here, to use my Hugo Boss belt example, I've named a brand.
Yeah.
I mean, first time you see their belt and it's $100, you think, wearing one of those could get me laid. But your slow brain then thinks, but it's $100. Your System 1 says, yeah, but it could get me laid. So System 2 says, yeah, but it's $100. System 1, yeah, but it could get me laid. So System 2 says, actually, there's 20% off. Let's have a belt. So you then say that's the way you do the deal. You give System 2 an excuse to justify the System 1 thinking.
Amazing. So why do you think it's important for companies to understand shopper psychology?
Because most of the retail activity at the moment, we work in the States a lot. I could talk big box retail, FMCG, grocery stores. If you look at the way the brain of the shopper thinks, you can bring in online to this, and then look at the way they're presented with products. It's woefully, woefully disconnected. So you have let's say, I won't name the names, but the big pharmacy chains in the US, you have some of the most complicated special offers and promotions on the planet.
Agreed.
Buy 2, get 3 free, and you get some extra points, and you get a free hairbrush. And this, if you come back next Tuesday, we'll say hello to you. So complicated. The brain of the shopper simply can't cope. The brain of the shopper has to work with what we call heuristics, shortcuts. So basically, if I put a big red sign in front of one toothbrush in amongst 50 others, people will buy that toothbrush just because they think I've reduced the choice, gets a big red sign. They assume there's a reason for the big red sign, so they buy it. I haven't given any money away by doing that. I've just put a big red sign. If I put a red sticker on a bag of potato chips, saying they are 50 cents, just that red sticker saying 50 cents, people think it's a special offer and will buy them. I've just given them a point of difference. So, the world at the moment, be it the retail store or the online store, is a mother of a spreadsheet. It's all linear, up and down, left and right. There are no straight lines in nature. Humans shop on emotion. Retail and online retail are missing emotion completely.
It's astonishing to hear all of this and think back in life and instances where I came across that red sticker on a bag of potato chips, and I figured, hey, it's 50 cents. Why not?
Welcome to the 21st century retail world.
Amazing. So just a quick story. While I was in high school about 8-9 years ago, I was shown a video in my economics class. It was about supermarkets and why they do what they do to sell their products. The only thing I can honestly remember is the fact that supermarkets store their milks at the back because shoppers would have to walk through tons of other products before getting to the milk. which tempts them to into getting other items. Does that sort of thinking have to do in the realm of sort of common sense, or is that what sort of shopper psychology entails?
Okay. The first answer to that question is, if you can imagine a 20-year pendulum, to mix my metaphors, at the one end of the pendulum, accountants are running retail. That's today. At the other 20 years away, psychologists are running retail. That's when you get different aisle widths that make you walk different speeds. That's when you get the milk being moved to the back of the store, but you don't anymore. At the moment, it's all about accountants. The reason they put the milk at the back, you're absolutely right, is to expose you to more products. However, it's sort of backfired on them, because if you've got a 50,000 square foot Walmart or Target and milk is at the back, you can either go into that store and walk 200 yards from your car to get to the front of the door of the store. You walk the 500 yards to the milk. You walk 5 yards back to the checkout. You pay. You walk 500. So you've done a good mile walk for this milk, and you've got it for $1. Or you can go to your local 7-Eleven, walk 10 paces, and pay $1.20. Which you do, $1.20 anytime. So what they've worked out now, as much as this sounds wonderful, spreading the basics around the supermarket so you walk miles, they've stopped people going there. So now they've shot themselves in the foot. It's what retailers do on a daily basis.
That makes total sense. When we actually do have to go to break, when we come back, we're going to get into master your brain and emotions, like Mr. Adcock mentioned before. Again, thank you, Mr. Adcock, so much with being with me. I'm just some regular old kid from New York who just decided to run a podcast, and it's just so amazing to be sitting down with you and speaking with you. When we come back, this is ParaDeisos. Change your thoughts. You can change the world. Okay, we are back. If you're just tuning in, which would be weird if you are, because this is a podcast and podcasts usually start at the beginning. So you shouldn't be just tuning in. But we do have Phillip Adcock, author, shopping psychologist, expert. Well, he claims he's not an expert, but he is an expert of the brain, people. He truly is. So sort of deviating a bit away from shopping psychology, what role does you kind of answered it before, but sort of elaborate a little bit more about emotions playing. What role does one's emotion play in becoming a successful person, whether it be in your career, in your faith, in your life, in your family?
Okay, well, firstly, understand that your brain operates using things called neurotransmitters, chemicals, dopamine, these sorts of things, the pleasure drugs. And what gets those flowing up and down, left and right, is emotion. It is what's kept us alive for 300 million years. It's what's kept us finding partners for the next generation. It's what it's all about. But there are things about emotion that people don't realize. For example, I alluded to it earlier, the emotional part of the brain can't read. So if I tell you about a beautiful looking girl or a beautiful looking view that really makes my heart race, you can't. That doesn't mean anything emotionally till you turn it into something else in your head. The words don't work. Yet too much of the time we're given words in stores, in life, and expected to be emotional with them when we have to turn them into pictures and scenarios. So there's a complete lack of understanding of human emotion. It's a word that's misused because first of all, there's instinct, which comes before emotion. That's if you hear a loud noise go bang, your heart races, that's instinct, keeping you alive. Then emotion kicks in and says it fight, fly to find a mate. Then the modern brain kicks in and says, right, hang on a minute, what is this situation? And weighs it up. And then you're left with a residual state, which is a feeling. But at the moment, if I ask you what you did in that ad break a minute ago and you try to remember, a lot of it you won't remember. You won't remember whether you took 1 or 3 sips of your drink or whatever you did, because it was all done automatically, and you were doing it for emotional reasons. You don't remember how you felt at that moment emotionally, but that's what's keeping you alert, ready for the next 18 seconds of your life as you go through life. If something happens, it's all about the next 18 seconds. So we think we allow reason to be our guide. Reason is not capable of guiding us sensibly to what we want in life. Let emotion guide you. I could give you examples if you want. I mean, if you let emotion... Right. This is one from my own life. I love this story. It's true. This is not gilded to sound good. This is true. When I was much, much younger, I wanted a Mercedes-Benz. Sorry if I mentioned a car name, but I wanted one.
That's fine.
And couldn't afford it. I was working as a salesman for a company, and I got hold of a sticker of the latest C-Class Mercedes-Benz. There's a picture of it, not the words, the picture. And I stuck it inside my briefcase. I took to all the meetings inside. So every time I opened my briefcase to try and sell something, I was greeted with the sticker of this Mercedes-Benz. So nothing ever happened. That's it. I carried that job for 3 years, then was doing something else. And I happened to be moving house. So we were emptying the loft, the attic, whatever you call it in the States. And in there was this briefcase. And I wonder what's in that. I thought all about that. So we get out the briefcase, my wife and I, open it, there's some pens, but in the top of it is still this sticker of the Mercedes-Benz. On the drive was my Mercedes-Benz that I'd got as a company car for my new job. So I had actually got it right down to the colour, the exact car I set my brain to go and get a couple of years before. It had got to me. And I'd totally forgotten it. Once I'd given my brain the emotional reason to go and get something, it went and got it. And I can give you others. That's how the brain does it. Plant the seed emotionally and just leave it alone.
And it's amazing that you mentioned that, because I've recently just finished, along with my brother, who's co-host of this podcast, we recently finished reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he's all about just like that auto-suggestion and just training the subconscious mind to believe that if you want something, you have to instill it in your brain.
Yeah, and that is a classic, great book. If you read that book, take the time and effort to read more modern things about the brain, because it makes that book easier. So if you take, for example, saying leaving it to the subconscious, to some people, oh, what is that? Isn't that the bit that I don't know about? That's just emotion. That's most of the subconscious is emotion. It's happening below consciousness. It's all the same stuff. And that was a very good book of its day. It's been around a while. Now there's more modern science about what that means. So I think he's no longer with us, but we could do with a rewrite of that right now.
Absolutely. So I actually wanted to read an excerpt of your book, if you don't mind. And it's on the sort of the case of emotion. It's from the chapter on the power of emotion. And it's emotions alter our mental and physical states, influence the drive, our decision-making processes, and govern why we react and behave as we do. They change our heart rates and level of physical activity. They can include greater awareness of our environment and even exertions of bodily fluids, tears, for example. But how can you use this newfound knowledge to your advantage in your quest for greater personal achievement? Before you can make any decisions, you need to understand that your subconscious already has decided what's best for you from the perspective of fight, flight, or fornicate, like you've mentioned, knowing that you can harness those emotional urges. I highlighted that paragraph because it was just amazing. And then I wrote, learn how to access what sets off your emotions. So like you said, it's all emotion. And would you say that conquering your emotions is the first step to understanding what the brain does?
Not necessarily the first step, but probably one of the biggest steps. Because, as I said, the first step about harnessing the power of your brain, to use that word, or mastering your brain, is to be able to say, okay, I've got this thing between my ears, and you have to change your beliefs. We all have these beliefs about how we think we function, how we think we're sensible and rational, and once you realize and you truly believe we're not, then you're on the route to making things better. Because as long as you carry on believing that you've got this super brain that's making all the best decisions for you rationally, and trying to get you the next career move and you're just gonna be fighting between your own ears. So yeah, you've got to step one is understand that we're not smart in the way we think we are. Emotionally, we're incredibly smart, but rationally, intelligently, we're not smart. Then step two, start to get the emotion. I've got a great story about how to sell bars of candy, I think you call them over there, in an airport shop. So it's a famous triangular candy that you can buy around the world. And then we're speaking to them by saying, our sales aren't doing very well. What do we do? And we said, you've got to understand why people buy your candy from an airport store. He said, well, go on, tell us. So this is the way it works. So I'd just come back from Zurich and I bought one of these bars. So asked me why I bought it. So they said, why did you buy it? I said, take home to my daughter as a present. So asked me why that was. So they asked me. I said, well, because I've been away and I want to buy a present. So, okay, ask me that. So why do you want to buy a present? Because you've been away. Well, she's my daughter. I'll tell her I missed her. So why, if you're going back tonight anyway, why do you need to buy a triangular piece of chocolate to tell her you missed her? Because I love her. That's why I bought the Toblerone. So if in the store you can associate that product with you buying love for your daughter, you'll sell it. And that's purely emotional. And that company now has messages on their packs that says, for my loved one. They're words, which isn't perfect, but it's better. And that's it. So if you want something in life, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get more money, if you want to get a job, if you want to get a new car, understand emotionally what it'll give you. Tell your emotional brain what you're going to get. Fight, flight, find a mate. Once your emotional brain gets it, it'll go and get it for you.
Wow, it's amazing. That's
you want it, Chad?
Yes, I appreciate it. So, as I was preparing my notes, which I thought it was enough, but I mean, you've given me so much information, given everyone, all our listeners, so much information in such little time. But as I was preparing my notes for this week, my wife not pulled me aside, but she was like, "Honey, why don't you ask the author you're interviewing?" She was like, "Actually, I have a great question that you can ask him. And it's, has he mastered his brain?" And she was sort of like giddy and like, "Yeah, you should ask him that." And I was like, and I was sort of, my first reaction was like, I don't think he's truly mastered your brain. Sort of what this book is all about. It's not really literally mastering your brain. It's understanding what the brain does and why it does it, like I mentioned before. So my question to you, I mean, you kind of answered it before, but maybe elaborating a little more. Does one truly ever master their brain?
No. If you imagine how many billions or trillions of neurons and synapses are going around between your ears right now, how many calculations it says in the book, we make it every split second, we're not going to master that for a long time. Certainly not in my life. However, and I go back to the point I made earlier, if you've got this phenomenal capability that is the power of thousands upon thousands, if not millions of actual supercomputers, and you can tap into just a bit of it. So you are at a distinct advantage over most of the population of planet Earth. So I'm just making this up as I go along, and I'm just thinking out loud. I actually think the book should have been titled "Master Other People's Brains," because once you know how yours works, you know how theirs works, and that gives you the advantage towards whatever you want to get.
Wow. But that's sort of that's also scary and amazing to think.
One more story quickly. One more story.
Yes.
I love it. I went for my first ever medical, age 57, last year, and the doctor says, "You're a bit overweight. You could do with losing a few pounds." Right, I will. So I literally use my own tools, and in 101 days, I lost 28 pounds.
Bravo!
And I was starting. It was nothing to do with clever, nothing to do with super me. It was just understanding why my brain went after food and coming up with a strategy to work around it. For example, if you go on a diet, your brain knows you're on a diet and it fights to get more food. It sends out some hormones mid-morning when you've only had a small breakfast, and mid-afternoon when you've had a small lunch. If you feed it some scraps, some titbits, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, it goes away thinking you fed it. And so you don't have to eat. There you go. It's things like that. It's just anything you want. Work out how the brain does it, and then work out how to deal with it. That's the way to start.
Wow. Whoa. It's just blowing my mind constantly. Why or what drove you? Because like you mentioned, you were an expert in shopping behavior. What sort of drove you to begin to write this book and explain everything that's in here? What was that turning point to say, okay, now I'm gonna do this and speak about what the brain is capable of? What was that turning point in your life?
Yeah. Was there a turning point? Probably. I'll come on to that in a minute. But the motivation was, if I've spent all these years being paid by these big companies to help people buy more candy, more cola, more breakfast cereals, more clothes, whatever, I've also helped people. I've never encouraged smoking, but helped people change the cigarettes they buy. And you think, I seem to have got these tools now. And you see people in life, you think you just need a helping hand. And it was just a case of I've done my bit now. I've learned all this stuff. For me to just keep taking it into these ivory towers of these big companies, when there's other people who just need the simplest of help. I mean, I'll give the turning point. The turning point was doing some work in Johannesburg in South Africa, doing some work in Soweto, Southwest Township, Dubai, in a supermarket, paying a guy 10 Rand, which was about $1, to look after my car all day while I did some research. And he dutifully did that and everything else. And I saw all these fantastic people with nothing, and with absolutely nothing. And I thought, these people, and you just think these people, they've still got the brain between their ears.
Right.
They don't need to go and, they were going to an awful lot of, I'm not going to go in this conversation where I'm going with it, they were going to an awful lot of seminars and things, paying money that they couldn't afford, trying to learn the wrong stuff. And it's a case of, you don't worry about all that mumbo jumbo. Here's some things you can use today. This is how you work. Go and deal with it. And I think, and I probably wrote it as much as anything for them. Just go and get it out of the library, download it off Amazon, and just go and do stuff. Don't pay people hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars for a 3 or 4 day course.
Something that you can learn on your own.
Yeah, who else has got your brain?
So would you have any advice for anyone who is starting a business or already owns one that they can use to attract and keep customers? You sort of mentioned it was sort of the airport story, is finding that sort of what attracts that customer.
Yeah, again, I sound like a stuck record. That was what you say?
My apologies. It's just the way my questions are sort of structured.
It comes out of emotion, but when it comes to starting a business, the biggest thing stopping somebody start a business, they all say, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to create my own cake shop. I'm going to create my own whatever. Get them to put a date in the diary. You can't say 1 day soon. You can't even say 3 weeks. It's got to be a date. And you have to then go and tell people that's the date. Because then you will find your brain gets you ready for that momentous decision. So you do start it. You don't put it off. Otherwise, we just keep putting things off. I mean, I'm going to go and ask my boss for a pay rise. I'm going to ask him just 1 day soon. Yeah. I'm going to ask him. Write on your board next to your desk. Next Tuesday, 10 a.m., I'm going to the boss. Then your brain will get you geared up emotionally to go and have that conversation. Same as starting a business. The other thing about business is, I've done it for 20 odd years. Businesses are run with a lot of fear in mind. Employers frighten employees. Debt collectors frighten other companies. Big companies frighten small companies. That's the way it works. Recognize fear for what it is, empty. Yeah, what is at the end of the fear? If you think, I can't. That man's going to shout at me if I don't deliver this hamper on 12 o'clock on Tuesday. He's going to shout at me. And well, it's a shout. What is it? It's a $50 hamper. Is that the end of your life?
Right.
Or will you be all right to get it at 12:30? And people get so wound up in how frightened they are of things that aren't actually frightening. Get to think through what you're worried about in your business, and you'll find it's not as bad as you thought. It's not, chances are your family aren't going to pass away. Chances are you're not going to lose your house. Chances are you're going to get told off by somebody or look a bit silly. That's what you're worrying about day in, day out in your new business. Don't. It's not a worry.
So you sort of mentioned sort of writing a date down to accomplish something. It's training your brain to have a set date. What or how would someone be able to overcome procrastination? Because when you said that, the word procrastination sort of came into my mind, and it's just like my own experiences is like, I mean, I've suffered with procrastination, and even till this day, I suffer with procrastination and how I just set things off. And even sometimes when I set a date and I'm so confident that I can succeed by that day, I sort of procrastinate and make excuses for myself as to why I need another week or another month or another couple of weeks. So how does one overcome procrastination?
Another tool you could use, I may have mentioned, I can't remember, but it's a very good tool, is don't just tell somebody, tell everybody. And don't just tell everybody in a meaningless way. Look your loved ones in the eye and say, next Tuesday, I'm going to ask for a pay rise. Look your children in the eye and say, next Tuesday, I'm going to try and get some money for this house. Look people in the eye. You're on a podcast.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what's going to happen. Get them to phone you next Wednesday. Say, what did you do last Tuesday? Tell them. Then your brain will think, I can't let myself down.
Sort of like an accountability.
Yeah. But as soon as you know everybody is waiting on you to do this thing that you've been procrastinating about, so you think, I'm just going to do it. Just you make the fear of them making you embarrassed and guilty, make that worse than procrastinating another week. So your brain is lazy. Your brain is very lazy, not you personally. All our brains are very lazy. We take the course of least resistance. If the course of least resistance is doing the thing you've been putting off as opposed to facing all your friends, colleagues, and family, you'll do that, and your brain will do it for you. You haven't got to worry about it. It just happens. Your brain will change the way you think about it. You won't even notice how you're thinking about it.
So sort of diving into a little bit about family and friends, what would be a good way to overcome sort of negative talking towards what you want to do? So let's say you said, if I wanted to achieve something, you need to be held accountable. So you tell your friends, you tell your family, I'm gonna ask for a raise next Tuesday. But then how do you overcome them saying, no, you're not gonna do it, you're not capable, you're probably gonna do it?
That's fantastic. That's just what you want them to say. Come on. I mean, if somebody says to you, you're never gonna run a mile in 10 minutes, make it up, I don't know.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't see that as, if you believe them, if you accept that, then you're weaker than they are. They're weak for telling you that because they're not being supportive as a human. But if you believe that, that's just pathetic. Sorry. If somebody says, you'll never do that, say, I will. Watch this. And you should see it as we say, red rag to a bull. I'm going to do this. This is exactly what I'm going to do. And there's all the famous stories. You must have heard some of them about. There's a guy in the UK, Dyson, makes vacuum cleaners.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think he had 1,200 prototypes before he got the thing to work.
Yeah.
So he didn't say he failed 1,200 times. He said, I learned something every time, but I also learned what not to do 1,200 times until I got the one that worked. There's a famous story from years ago about the KFC guy about all his recipes.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these stories. And it's your own fault. Sorry, I'm being critical of you here.
No, not at all.
If somebody says you're not going to do that, you'll never do that, just see that as, I will. Watch me.
Motivation.
That should just what? Watch me. And can you imagine if you go around telling lots of people, I'm never going to make anything. I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to get a girlfriend. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. You start telling your brain you're never going to do it. Your brain will think, okay, we'll never do it. I'll give you what you keep telling everybody, and it'll never do it. There's another exercise you can do. If you want to start business, take 2 pieces of paper. Write down, just free flow as much as you can about starting a business. Mm-hmm. Why you should do it, why you shouldn't do it. Just write. Type it on the screen, whatever you want to do. Then do a bit of analysis on what you've written. Start by saying, how many negative words have I got and how many positive words have I got? How many times have I said I will versus how many times have I said I can't, for example, as I've written this diatribe down. Count them. And you should, your chances of success are the amount of positive words you've got. But then go back to it and rewrite it, but changing all the negative words for their positive alternatives. So instead of saying, I can't raise the capital, I can raise the capital. I've just got to work out how. And suddenly it's a different conversation. And then you're telling your brain, you can do this. If you tell your brain it can't do something, it's only too happy to obey.
That is, again, astonishing. Goal setting, how important when it comes to, again, success in all aspects of life? What importance does goal setting have in one's life?
Goals are brilliant. We all need goals. You run out of goals, you stop breathing. I mean, that's it, because you've achieved everything.
Right.
However, the goals we set are often misplaced, misguided, and just plain wrong. So here's a great wrong goal. I want $1 million. That's a dumb goal. $1 million is nothing. $1 million is loads of bits of paper with a bit of metal inside them. Right. It's nothing. What you want isn't even what the $1 million will buy you. It's what that $1 million purchases will get you, will give you. You'll give your family security and a home. You'll feed your family. You'll have that Ferrari that gets you that girl from down the street, whatever you want. That's all the stuff your brain understands. So don't put a picture of $1 million on your wall. It doesn't mean anything. It's what the $1 million will get you emotionally. And and then the other thing we do is, if I said, I want the $1 million to get the Ferrari to get the girl down the road. If that was my goal, so I've got a picture of the girl down the road next to the Ferrari in the $1 million step. That's too big a leap for my brain. It'll go after it, but it's too easy for my brain to get despondent en route, because I'm still riding a push bike, a pedal cycle, and I still haven't got a girlfriend, for example. So we need some goals on the way. We need some mile markers. So on my route to the $1 million, to the Ferrari, to the girl, I'll get the first dollar. So if I find $1, I earn $1. That's a goal. Right, once I've got that one, I'm going to try and find $5. And then I'm doing it. I'm on the way. There's a famous piece of research about people in coffee shops. You get a card. And if you get this card and you get 10 stamps on it, and then you get a free coffee. Are you familiar with this? But that's the way it works. And X percent of people who have one of these cards bother to fill it in. If the coffee shop says it's 12 stamps, and the first 2 stamps will give you free, so it's still a gap of 10,
Okay.
twice as many people complete the card. Because they've been started on the journey, and their brain completes the journey to get to the end of the journey now they've started. So they've had the journey started for them. So you go after your goal of the girl down the street with the Ferrari you're going to use in the $1 million. That's the end of the journey. Somebody needs to start you on the journey. The $1 or the $10 is the first little step of that journey. So you need a journey, not just an end point.
Wow. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. I'm just in awe. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm just in awe in all the information you have. Do you have
It's
any?
too much. I mean, I do this every time. I talk too fast and I give people too much information because I've learned so much over so many years. You just want to sort of share it all, and you just can't.
Exactly.
It should be, hundreds of little 10-minute segments, but that's not me. I just speak. That's what I do.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who love to hear you listen. Are you working on anything else that, I mean, if you're allowed to share anything, any new creation?
There's stuff going on professionally, which will involve a lot more US travel and things about helping some big brands over there some more. But that's not for today. That's stuff I can't share.
Okay, that's fine. Totally understand.
Now there is some stuff I can share, and I'm sort of asking I'm asking opinion.
Okay.
I don't want to write another book.
Okay.
I've emptied my head 3 times in 3 books.
Okay.
This one and 2 others. I don't want to write. A lot of people are telling me to write the same one, and I'm asking your opinion whether I should bother, and your listeners. So here we go, and I'll take any feedback you give me now and in the future. They want me to write the diet book.
The diet book.
The diet book. Now, there's a book out there which I don't rate, but that's fine. There's a book out there called Think Yourself Thin, but it's not about thinking yourself thin. It's just a very good title for a different book.
All right.
Is there I'm going to mix my metaphors. Is there a hunger for using your brain to get a better diet, eat better, without having to go through the pain of calorie counting and stuff?
I think there isn't, only because it hasn't been introduced, only because it's not something that's well known. I think if someone and people who are introduced to something like that and are given the understanding to believe that getting into shape, living a healthier lifestyle has less to do with calorie intake and calorie count and all those micros, and more to do with why the brain desires sweets or unhealthy things, then the market, that demographic would understand that and crave it and want to continue to learn about it. So again, I don't think it's there because it hasn't been introduced. But if it's introduced and it's taught, then I think that's a gold mine. And because the nutrition industry and exercising is such a rave and has been such a rave for so long, I think introducing that the brain has so much, and if not the majority of what to do when it comes to getting into shape, I think it'd be amazing.
I mean, very, very quick examples. I mean, for example, they did some research where if you change the size of a plate you have your breakfast and your dinner on, you eat less.
Mm-hmm.
Fact. If you have a short, fat glass, you drink a different amount from it than if you have a tall, thin glass.
Right.
If you go to the bar and drink pints of beer, as we do in Europe and the UK, you will drink at the speed of the people around you.
Right.
So you give people glasses that are fat at the top and thin at the bottom, so it suddenly shoots down at the bottom. All this stuff it's nothing to do with calorie counting. I hate to use the word, but it's tricking the modern brain by letting the old brain decide what it thinks it's eating. And it's whether I can be bothered to invest a year of my life.
Pardon me. Like I said, I think when you mentioned sort of that whole eating on a smaller plate. Stuff like that. I've learned. I think people have sort of an idea. Okay, if I eat in a smaller plate, I can train my mind to sort of think that I'm full. I can train my mind to believe that my stomach is full. Small little aspects like that. People know, but I think especially with your knowledge, you can dive into like you. I've never heard the analogy or the fact that if you have a smaller if you have I'm sorry a bigger at a pub, if you have a bigger glass at the top and then smaller at the bottom, people are gonna drink it according to what other people are drinking. I've never heard something like that, so it's
Yeah,
definitely interesting.
it's all part of the human. There we are. It's the human animal at play. And so yeah, apart from that, I'm just I sound over optimistic. I just go through enjoying myself. To sound very American, love my family, walk my dog. I'm happy. That'll do.
Amazing. Before we sign off, I just want to ask you one quick question. When it comes to me reading, I've my love for books has grown tremendously over the last few years. I never used to like books. I used to like think they were my kryptonite, but I've grown to love and cherish books. Um, but when I read books, to be honest, yours, this book, and I don't know if you've heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah,
Those two books were the only two books that I've ever read without an audio book. So what are the chances that this can become an audiobook? I mean, I've asked many people, and I just think that, and while I was reading this, I just kept thinking to myself, man, this should be like a curriculum. This should be like being taught. This is so good information that it should be taught in high schools and colleges. This should be in curriculum. So I just feel like because I have such a high interest in books, and because I read my not most of my books, if not all, with audiobooks along with my physical books, I think an audible book would be amazing. And if there's anything I can do towards making that
right.
happen, I've submitted the you can go to audible.com. Sorry to sort of cut you off, but I've
That,
submitted uh sort of like a form to audible.com. You can like suggest book, and I've submitted Master Your Brain about 5 or 6 times, and they always push me to the bottom of the list. But I just think it'd be a great value to a lot of people who sort of like me back then were sort of kryptonite when it comes to books, but love audiobooks, like to listen to them in their car, or that's the only way they can read a book.
yeah, there. Um, you're absolutely right. It should be, and I'll let you in. Not a secret. I'll let you into the way publishing works. Not in a good way.
Okay.
I hope I don't get sued. This is the book's published by Pearson in New York. So go and knock on the door. They published the thing. It sold 15,000 copies up until about 6 months ago, so more now.
Uh-huh.
It's selling fine, but that doesn't light their lights. That doesn't excite them. So they're not interested in it. No, they own it. That's the trouble. When these publishers take your book, they own it. I can do nothing. I can't even suggest. I mean, I don't even see it. I don't like the cover. I said about words and pictures. It's all pictures. It should be pictures on the cover, not words. But I have no say in that. I have no say in anything. The only way, and I implore your listeners to do the same, get in touch with Pearson in New York and say you want. It's them that can make this. Not even Audible. It's Pearson that can get that done. Whether they want me to read it out, or they get some famous person or non-famous person to read it out, or they are the guardians of whatever happens to it. Yeah. So
The sole proprietor of the book.
yeah, I just wrote the thing. I'm gone now in their heads.
It's out of your hands now.
Yeah, I wish that wasn't the case. Yeah, I do wish that wasn't the case because it's a shame.
Do you agree the fact that it should be an Audible?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Not because trust me, people don't get rich writing books. I so unless you write about 10 million copies, you're not going to get rich. But the way we live our life now with our smartphones and everything else, much as I like books because I like to write in the cover and write in the margins and all the stuff on psychology, most people don't want to do that. They've got their Kindles and their iPads and all this. That's what they want to do. Yeah, and they're listening to them on the train, everywhere else, and in the car, in the automobile. So all books should be audible. But I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how to get a big New York publisher to listen to one guy from England that says you should turn this into an audio book. I think if you've got a listenership, that they had a bit of a concerted effort, and let's be honest, tell their friends to have a concerted effort. Let's get multiple knocks on their doors. They start to listen because I can't do it, and I wrote the thing.
Well, I'm gonna personally make sure our listeners, and I'm gonna see if I start a petition or maybe a GoFundMe and get this thing into an Audible without a doubt. I mean, this thing definitely needs to get into the hands into people who don't believe in physical books anymore. Like you said, the technology world nowadays. We're gonna make it happen. And to use sort of your technique, let me just sort of look into my calendar because I'm gonna set a date as to when it's gonna be achieved. Just because I'm not cocky but confident that it will happen. I'm giving myself and my listeners September 1st. September 1st.
I'm writing that down. Call me September the 2nd.
Okay.
And I'm going to put in my diary that you're going to call me September the 2nd.
Yep.
Or I'll call you.
September the 2nd, I will be calling you and letting you know that Pearson Publishing, or whatever they're called, is going to make your book into an Audible. My listeners, ParaDeisos, everyone in the community is going to make sure that they make it into an Audible.
That's it. And when we go off air, I'll give you the name of the person to speak to.
Awesome. Definitely. Mr. Adcock, thank you again. I just mean it from the bottom of my heart that you took the time out of your assuming busy life to sit down and speak to just a regular old kid from New York who runs this podcast with somewhat of a good listening. And again, I'm honored. Any final thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
A bizarre thing, obviously, as we've done this little chat for the last hour or so, I've been looking at your face. One of the things I do is I read face expressions.
Yeah.
One of the things that this is just a sign off. This is a bit of free therapy for you. There you go.
Okay.
Good job. Pretty much everything you've said and done this afternoon, you've done with a smile on your face. Now, there's a well-known thing in psychology that people don't get depressed, they are depressed. And it's to do with your physiology and your psychology. So how you hold your facial expression, how you hold your body posture, determines directly how you feel. If you stand up, put your shoulders back, you'll feel confident. If you sit and slouch, you'll feel depressed. You can't help that. That's the way we're wired. If you don't have facial expressions on your face, you won't feel the expression. That's why actors and actresses who have Botox are mad, because they can't enact, because they can't get the facial expressions to character act. So people should look at you smiling and try and talk with a smile on the face. Do the old talk with a pencil in your mouth, because it really works. You come across so much more positively, and if you come across positively, you're also thinking more positively. Your brain does it automatically because it's reacting to how you feel. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that all the people listening to this that can't see your face will hear the tone in your voice that's more positive. So take that as you are a happy guy.
I really appreciate it. I try to be happy. And that's what this podcast is about. It's just finding happiness, showing people that a small thing when it comes to changing your thought, changing the way you see life and the way you see things in this world. My brother and I spoke about lenses of perception and how we see through our lens, but we don't really see what the lens is. And if we sort of change that, we can see the world differently. And I just think that teaching things like that is what brings happiness, what brings joy, what brings knowledge, what brings information, and what we feel is a part of or subcategories in what brings such a happy and fulfilled life. What we think.
Yeah, and I'll end on this note. This is a lovely positive note. As we've been around for 300 million years as some form of species mm-hmm. with a brain, in the last 20 years, we've probably learned more about the brain than we did in the last 300 million minus that 20. We are learning so much quicker. The challenge we have now is keeping up with industry's way behind the learning. Politicians, thankfully, are way behind the learning.
Thankfully.
Most people are way behind the learning. So the few of us that are still learning are at a distinct advantage, and we can do so much with it. you're just going to have to face facts that most people out there will think you're cuckoo because they don't know the stuff you're talking about, and it's that they will know in a few years' time, but they don't know yet.
So before we sign off, before we head on our separate ways, one last question: is it true that we only use 11% of our brains?
No, we use all of our brain, but not necessarily in the best way. So, if you know the brain doesn't work anywhere near like people think it does, and I don't know how it works. Nobody knows how it actually works. It's like the universe. It's too big to see where the edge is.
Right.
But for example, they talk about things like left brain and right brain.
Mm-hmm.
Both those halves are all over the brain. It's just they happen to call them left and right because it's easy. We talk about emotion and reason. They're actually interconnected. We've got the thalamus and the hippocampus and all that, but it's interconnected. That we only use 11% of our brain, and those that learn to learn a bit more do so much more with their brain. I would say, look at it this way: we only use 11% of our brain constructively. We waste the other 89% just pointlessly doing mental stuff that we needn't do. For example, worrying about things that we shouldn't worry about. For example, defeating ourselves by saying we can't do something all the time when that's just giving our brain a job. We're telling our brain the wrong thing. I'm one of these people that sees my brain as this real mate of mine, but it's an angry teenage mate of mine, and I have to be quite dominant over it. Otherwise, it does stupid stuff. So in terms of your 11%, the angry teenager is probably the 89%. And the more mature adult is the 11%. So they're just out of balance. That's all it is.
Amazing. Again, Mr. Phillip Adcock, thank you again so much. Hopefully we can cross paths in person. I can shake your hand. Maybe we can sit down for a cup of coffee or tea and just continue talking. I'm sure I didn't ask nowhere near enough questions to dig into what that brain has to offer of yours. But, and I'm sure our listeners want to hear more of you. Maybe in the near future, we can maybe create a short series where we can dig into master your brain and such. So again, thank you so much for taking the time and just sitting and having a conversation with me.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, let's do some more stuff. We can do some little podcast-ettes that people can take away and do little things with. But we'll be speaking again on the 2nd of September, I guarantee it.
Oh, guarantee it. Again, Mr. Adcock, thank you again so much. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and blessings to all.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.